Welcome to the Peering Podcast, where the best way to see the future is to peer into it together. It's smart talk with a twinkle in its eye, about peer power, leadership agility, and collective intelligence in a world spinning faster every day. Hosted by Mike Richardson and friends, we peer into what it really takes to stay human, stay curious, and stay future ready. Real conversation, where peers get curious, curiosity gets peery, and leadership gets real. So pull up a chair and let's peer into it together.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Peering Podcast. I'm really excited today that we are launching a sort of lane of episodes inside of the Peering Podcast that we're going to call Portfolio Conversations. And these Portfolio Conversations are going to be co-hosted with me and my very, very, very good friend, Zed or Zarir, known as Zed Vakil. Hey Zed, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Lovely to be with you here, Mike. And I'm so excited about the start of this podcast series. I think we've got a lot to share and hopefully something that our listeners can grab hold of.
Yeah. So everybody, you know, the Peering Podcast, the best way to see the future is to peer into it together. And Zed and I, in this series of podcasts around portfolio conversations, we will be peering into the future of portfolio careers and portfolio professionals. And we'll explain that word portfolio as we go along here. Zed and I have been doing this for a little while. Zed has been portfolio for 15 years or so. I've been portfolio for 25 years or so. And so, yeah, we're wiping the sweat off our brow. We've got 40 years of combined experience that we're looking forward to bringing to this table. Let's start off, Zed, with how on earth did you and I meet? And by the way, we should tell everybody, yes, we've got two English accents here, kinda. Zed's is a pure English accent. It's beautiful. It really is. It's gorgeous. Mine is a sort of mangled mid-Atlantic, I'm so confused English accent, but we're about to hear Zed's again. Zed, how on earth did you and I meet?
Thanks for that, Mike. You're very kind. Like a lot of portfolio professionals, we went looking for stuff post-pandemic. I know we met at a virtual platform called the Portfolio Collective, TPC. Yep. I think I was making a habit of that time of not just meeting people on the platform, but then encouraging them to go for one-to-one, after which you kindly took up my offer. And we got going and had a chat probably maybe nearly 4 years ago now, actually, Mike. Yeah. That's where we met.
Yeah. So there's this global organization, everybody, global community called TPC, the Portfolio Collective. I'll tell my story a little bit, Zed, and then perhaps you tell yours. So, you know, I've been portfolio for 25 years, but actually I took a 3-year break from 2018 to 2021. And I went back and ran a global company again. Not least of all because of COVID. That turned into the agility case study that I was looking for times 10. So I pivoted back from that late 2021. And in between times, in those 3 years, I reconnected with a gentleman that I'd been coaching beforehand who wasn't happy in his corporate career. He wasn't being successful. And I'd been talking to him, you know, pre-2018. Well, have you ever considered going portfolio? And of course, most people's response to that is, what is portfolio? And what we mean, of course, is going independent and building a portfolio of activities, boards, facilitation, coaching, consulting, mentoring, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I had a glass of wine with this gentleman late 2021 as I pivoted back from running that global company again. And lo and behold, in between times in those 3 years, he had gone portfolio and he was being phenomenally successful. I was floored with how successful he was being. So as I'm driving back, here we are late 2021 in a post-COVID, almost, we were emerging from COVID world, where all of our heads are in the space of online everything and communities and all that kind of stuff. And I'm driving back thinking, I wonder if anybody's put up a community for people considering launching or executing portfolio careers? Because if they haven't, I will. Well, 5 minutes of Googling later, I came across TPC, the Portfolio Collective, found the CEO, Ben Legg, and messaged him and hopped on a call. How did you run across TPC, Zed?
And the rest is history. Yeah, not dissimilar. I am having spent much of the 2010s almost by default after a corporate and venture capital career. During the 2010s, I pivoted to a portfolio career, and I was ostensibly an interim fractional director, had some non-executive directorships right up to COVID. And then during COVID, as we all were sitting at home wondering what was coming next, I had a chance phone call with that same Ben Legg of TPC, who approached me to looking for a reference for someone who wanted to employ that I used to employ. We got talking. It was quite evident that I was having a portfolio career, even though by that time I was not calling it a portfolio career. And as a result of that, I think at the early stages, I offered to help Ben with a couple of his original pitches and presentations to this community of TPC. And yes, the rest is history. That's really where my start to life with TPC began, much the same as yours. And that's where we met. So,
and we'll come back to this later, everybody, but the research, the data, the statistics show undeniably, not surprisingly either, that there is a rising tide, a massive trend of more and more and more people going portfolio, taking the leap from their corporate career and going and building themselves a portfolio career. We'll come back to that. And so that's why, Zed and I are so passionate about portfolio careers and portfolio professionals and how they navigate their pathway to success. And that's what this Portfolio Conversations podcast stream will be all about. But let's double click a little bit more, Zed. First of all, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what's in your portfolio today? What are you up to? What irons have you got in what fires as part of your portfolio business model?
Yes, and as you know, Mike, I refer to myself as a multi-format business growth partner.
Yeah,
and that's really come about with a lot of soul searching about what it was that met with my passionate purpose, and maybe that's something we talk about at some stage. That at this, let's call it the last quarter of my life.
That's being polite, everybody.
Kindly. I would want to be doing stuff that really meant something to me, something that I could not do. And so I pivoted my original consulting business into something which was a little bit more nimble. So I do have a business growth consultancy, a boutique consultancy where most of you would imagine how a consultant would operate on a day rate or half day rate, etc. But that wasn't good enough when I was coming across legions of prospective clients, principally because of COVID, who were very talented, hadn't started businesses, didn't know the first step of starting a business, and clearly asking them to put down an investment in consulting was too much. And this is like you, Mike, where I started wondering about the next things that I needed to look for. I was very, very lucky to come across you and your introduction to REF in terms of the peer-to-peer forum format. And we'll talk more, I'm sure, about portfolio peer forums shortly. But in my bucket of things now that I do, I'm a peer-to-peer forum leader. So I run a consulting firm. I'm a peer-to-peer forum leader. I also do masterclasses because I wanted to productize, if you like, what I was doing and make it easy to access to those people I mentioned earlier on. I also still do some mentoring, non-executive directorships, and I would love to start forming a little bit of my model into speaking and facilitation generally.
Yeah, beautiful, great start. And by the way, everybody, like any other field, if you're talking about coaching or mentoring or training or consulting, you have to be quite precise with your language, because in this domain of knowledge work that we're both in,
Mm.
those words mean different things. And it's the same with portfolio. There are many other words in a similar bucket, right? We might talk about solopreneur, right? We might talk about independent consultant. We might talk about fractional consultant. We might talk about someone that's building a small firm where they've got, a small number of people. Obviously, if that firm grows and grows and grows, then they're back in the real deal of running a significant business again. So there's all kinds of other phraseology that people might come across. Another is multi-hyphenate. You just said multi-format. Right. So we're going to put all of those things, everybody, in the generalized bucket that we're going to call portfolio professionals, portfolio careers. But we will touch upon these other phraseologies and vocabularies as we go along here. And we're really here to help people navigate that pathway to success, because it's not easy, and we'll come back to that a little bit more. Zed, what are you able to draw upon from your career? You mentioned it briefly, but tell us a little bit more about how did you get here?
Yes. Who knows? Wow. Well, how far back do you want me to go? Look, I had a wonderful, wonderful corporate career that started off my working life. I had no idea that everybody didn't have such brilliant bosses who allow them to do the most amazing things in my early 20s that, frankly, I don't think I'd have the courage to allow a 23-year-old to get their hands stuck into. But they did, and it was very formative for me. I spent roughly 10 years in corporate life. I worked for very large organizations like BAT at that time, BAT Industries as it was known at that time, and then GKN. And I was always in fast-moving subsidiaries. So they had the feel of a startup, if you like, albeit we were looking at telephone numbers and not small numbers. And that was very formative. I then took a big, big risk with a few mates, and we decided we'd start a small investment management operation, if you like. We never knew that was going to turn into a venture capital company. Wow. And I spent 15 years there losing my hair, but making quite a bit of money, as you can see.
Yes, those of you watching on video will notice that I have a lot of gray hair. Actually, it's nearly white. And Zed he decided to skip that. And he just doesn't have a lot of hair.
So the venture capital company, having thought it was a little bit, and boy, when I look back, what a big, big change that was, going from a corporate life into a venture capital life. That was a big change. And actually the first change for me there from corporate into SME, if you like. And that was extraordinarily formative. I ended up with being a portfolio director for dozens of companies. At peak, we would have about 36 to 40 companies under management.
In your investment portfolio.
In the investment portfolio. And we each of us, I think the hybrid, and that, again, very formative part of my career, the hybrid was that we got our share sleeves rolled up. We only got paid by our investee companies, and we had to provide value for that. So as a consequence, each partner was responsible for half a dozen companies at any one time, and had to roll their share sleeves up and do a job. So it wasn't a case of sitting in a shiny Mayfair office and looking at spreadsheets. It was very much an operator role that we had to take. And the biggest investment there that was under my charge was, and those of you who might be listening in the US will know New Horizons Computer Learning Centers. I was responsible in my group for purchasing the master franchise to bring it over the water to the UK and Ireland. That was one of our biggest investments, and actually one of our most successful ones. Ran that for about 4 years until its exit. And at that point, I decided I had got the bug, the entrepreneurial bug. I wanted to do something for myself. So I actually asked my partners whether they would seed fund me and allow me to go away and run my own thing.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did.
Wow.
I decided to move on, start my own consulting firm. At first, it was really an HR outsourcing pure play
Right.
until I discovered that a lot of the founders who were my clients were asking me for business advice. So it kind of morphed into a business consultancy because of
Right.
my background. And that
Well,
took me through into various things right up to actually the point where one of my clients decided to make me an offer I couldn't refuse to join their board. So I packed up my clients, sold my clients all on, kept my brand. And the result of that is I ventured back, a bit like yourself, Mike, ventured back into corporate life and worked a couple of years each in insurance outsourcing, private healthcare, and finally private banking. And I finally, Mike, arrived at my shiny Mayfair office in this private bank, only for the financial crash to spoil
oh
everything.
my gosh.
Yes. So by 2010, I was out there. I'd spent a couple of years there, sort of twiddling my thumbs for the last year, actually. And the consequence of that is I had, like a lot of people, was forced into a situation of what do I do next? And that's when I really first went into what we now call my portfolio career, what I
Yeah.
then just called a gun for hire. I would go into companies principally on referral and fix stuff.
Yeah. And some good things are coming up already, everybody. So number one, Zed has been mired in the concept of portfolio all the way back into his investment venture capital days.
Yep.
And probably before that in his corporate days, like I was, right? In my corporate days, I ended up running the aerospace division of a British public company where I had a portfolio of different technologies and different products and different services that we pulled into an overarching integrated systems concept and that was a paradigm shifting approach and went to market with. So it was no longer a loose collection of bits and pieces. It was a tight collection of a systemic solution. And we'll come back to that. That's the first thing. Second thing is you just heard Zed sort of explain that the rug got pulled out from underneath him with the great recession in 2007, 8, 9. And therefore to some degree no doubt you were already preconditioned, Zed, to see the door open in front of you towards a portfolio existence. But the same happened with me. I was running that aerospace division. I'd arrived in San Diego in the summer of 2000. I had 2 years left on my work permit. I went into a cold sweat because we'd lived in Kansas for 2 years and had never really thought about staying in Kansas. We would have gone back to the UK when my work permit timed out. But having arrived in San Diego with 2 years left, I went into a cold sweat because we would love to stay in San Diego. I wish I'd started my green card process 2 years prior. Fortunately, we were able to get support from the corporation and the legal team to say, oh, no, we can still get this done. And I was very lucky in that I got my green card 2 months before 9/11 in September. So I got my green card in July, 2001 compared to September 2001. And therefore, everything tanked, right? Because not only did 9/11 happen, the markets had crashed, the dot-com bubble had burst, the corporate share price had gone from a peak to a trough. And, I decided, okay, this is my exit. I'm going to take the leap and I'm going to do my own thing because in the prior 12 years that I'd been married, I had been woefully absent as a father and a husband because I was traveling the world like a maniac, serving the global, airline and aerospace and defense businesses. And so where this brings us to, everybody, is it brings us to this sort of readiness.
And that's the story you often hear, don't you? Especially of men having been, absent parents.
Yeah. So it brings us around, everybody, to this kind of readiness. for portfolio. In fact, one of the things I like to say, since I've been involved, in the Portfolio Collective and developed a little bit of a shtick around this, what I say to people is it's not if you will have a portfolio career, it's only when. Because even if you stick with your corporate career until, a step function retirement age 67, you hear so many stories, don't you, Zed, of, 3 months later, that person is now saying things like, I'm bored to tears. I can only play so much golf. I wonder if I could volunteer. I wonder if I could mentor. I wonder if I could teach. I wonder if I could coach. I wonder if I could consult. And what I say to people at that point is, those are really cool questions. Just a real shame you waited until age 67 to start asking them. What if you'd asked those questions aged 62? Age 57, age 52, when, you still had your day job, your corporate career, but you could have been spooling up your thought process and perhaps got on some boards, got involved with a business school, did some other kind of volunteering that was spooling up this portfolio track alongside your day job track of your corporate career, so that when you were ready to transition, which is going to be inevitable at some point, you've already got some things in motion. What are your additional thoughts about all of that, Zed?
Yeah, look, perfection and looking back retrospectively can be easy in hindsight. But, at the time, and I put myself in this, I wish I had leveraged my network more. I wish I'd spooled up something earlier, etc. So we are where we are, I guess, in our careers and our lives. And I think the important thing is that, and I say this in my shtick, Mike, that there is no guarantee that as you leave your corporate life, or as you leave a corporate job, you are necessarily then deserving of a portfolio career. You have to work at it.
Yeah.
And the consequence of the people that I see who actually very humbly ask themselves and ask others, how does this thing work? And where do I get the best information to start a portfolio career? And what are the things that I have to do to make sure that I'm not sitting in a year's time, scratching my head, wondering why nothing is happening, when I frankly didn't put the foundations down to make sure that they were happening.
Yeah.
And I think so there's a kind of a before and after that we can perhaps talk about in this episode.
Yeah. I say all the time, I left my corporate job on, I think it was Friday, March 31st, 2002. I think that was the date. Maybe it's slightly off.
Right.
And, I walked out, that Friday afternoon. On that Friday, I was somebody. I was a corporate guy. I was a senior guy. I had a track record. I had a reputation. I had some accomplishments. So on the Friday, I was somebody. On the Monday, I was nobody. I was just another person trying to be successful as a, consultant, coach, trainer, mentor, facilitator, you name it. I try not to call myself a consultant. We'll come back to that for many reasons. So great conversation in the beginning here, and this is why everybody we wanted to start this subset of the Peering podcast that we're calling Portfolio Conversations, because there's a lot to talk about. There really is a lot to talk about in terms of Zed's experience of how he's been successful, my experience. There isn't a one size fits all by any means. One of the reasons why Zed and I had a meeting of minds when we got involved, each of us, in the Portfolio Collective, and we started running into each other, and then we had the one-to-one call that Zed mentioned, and we had 2 or 3 of those, and we arrived at this meeting of minds that finding a successful pathway with a portfolio career is hard, it's complex, and it's lonely. And showing up for the odd networking session, the odd webinar, the odd, little training class as part of a bigger community just wasn't doing it for us, because those engagements tend to be fairly limited, fairly fleeting, and fairly shallow. And so we kind of arrived at a mutual place together, a meeting of minds, that there's something missing here. There's a void that we need to fill of a deeper, ongoing engagement that's got some continuity to it. And so we launched Portfolio Peer Forums. As you heard, Zed is involved with REF, previously Renaissance Executive Forums, subsequently rebranded to REF in the UK. I've been involved with REF, and before that, other peer group organizations for a couple of decades already. And so we arrived at the meeting of minds of, let's do a peer forum specifically for portfolio professionals who are trying to find their way. We've been doing it for now, what, Zed, 2 years?
2 years. Maybe a bit longer than that, because we ran some pilots and whatnot. Yeah.
And so we have, a forum of portfolio professionals that get together once a month virtually for a couple of hours. And we take it through a structured flow. But what it means is that we are driving a lot of conversations around portfolio and what does it take to be successful. And that's what this stream of the podcast is going to be about. It's going to be about unfolding those kinds of conversations about the reality check of what it really takes. Because I don't know about you, Zed, but I think what we've probably both seen the pattern of over those 2 years that we've been doing that is it is easy to oversimplify how to be successful as a portfolio career. It's harder, it's more complex than that. What are you seeing in the trenches, Zed, of what it takes to be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to my comments earlier on about, and you said it, you one day you're something, and the next day you're not. I think where
Mike Richardson, who?
Who's that?
Click.
No, you've got a lot of that. Hey, I came out of a shiny, brand new company BMW into a beaten up old Volvo when I left. So I know where that is. And by the way, that is a subject also about, being financially aware too. Yep. But that's for another day. What I see in the trenches up close is two types of people generally. One, those who have the humility and understanding that things have changed massively, and that they will have to take. In fact, I was talking to a lady earlier on who displayed these characteristics. They'll have to take things one at a time and really understand how to put together something that will work. The other side of it, and the other type of character, is that character who believes that because they were SVP at Google, that on Friday, on Monday morning, they'll still carry on with that same status, and it will enable them to open doors, get new business, etc. And they're scratching their heads in 12 months' time because they really haven't prepared themselves for this new portfolio world. Now, some people crack it by luck, but mostly we have to put in interventions, and as you and I might work out extensively, different interventions at different stages from A to Z to get people to where they need to be on their own success route, what success looks like for them, but actually the commonality of making sure that you're aligned with your own passionate purpose, that you really understand your marketplace, that you have a value proposition that matters. You're not a solution looking for a problem, but a problem and the other way around. Yeah. So I think the naivety, I think, is something that, and I hope that's not being too coarse. The naivety I see in people who would otherwise have been very experienced and very reasoned in their corporate life or their previous life, somehow forget to do that in their portfolio life. And I think that's a big mistake.
Yeah, I love that, actually. That reminds me of what I've said many, many, many times is, look, I've been accused of being naive at every phase of my career. I remember it in my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, my 60s, where I am now. So I've been accused of being naive at every phase of my career, including this one, right? I love that.
I didn't say it, did I?
Yeah, no. I love that, everybody, because what that means is I've stuck my head up into a new arena that I've not been in before. And I got a lot to learn. I got to be a quick study to figure this stuff out and start to, take the right steps, get some traction, get on a trajectory that can lead to a great place, rather than, if I'm not careful, I can spin my wheels for a long time and be a busy fool.
Yeah.
And by the way,
I just bust in there and say, that's exactly what I was doing before I realized I had to stop and get a grip and stop these wheels spinning. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so that's what this podcast stream will be about, everybody. Portfolio conversations about how to get traction, how to unfold a trajectory, how to be in the flow of all of that. And you touched upon something else, Zed. You said the A to Z. That reminds me, everybody, that Zed and I are working on a book that we'll be publishing this year, at least an ebook. We're calling it the A to Z, or in English, A to Z, not least of all picking up on Zed's nickname. A to Z, an A to Z road atlas of portfolio career success. Now, let's talk a little bit, Zed, about why we feel we want and need to write that book. Really, we feel like, again, there's a void that needs to be filled, right? And we can't find the book we want to read. And so we've decided to write it together. Delve into that a little bit more, Zed.
Sure. I think the best analogy I can think of is, if you're studying a subject, whether it's business, geology, biology, chemistry, there are thousands of textbooks and thousands of reference sites you can get to do that vocation, that career, that challenge. I think what Mike and I have identified is that we are resource light in a space which shouldn't be, because this is just going to burgeon. This sector of portfolio careers is going to become and is becoming huge. And therefore, if nothing else, those people who are pioneering in this space, and we put ourselves in that frame because we've been doing it for a lot of years, even though it hasn't been called portfolio. I'm not sure I could spell portfolio at the beginning, Mike. The upshot of it is that we want to create something that can become a reference book, a reference resource that you can turn to, not have to read it verbatim, but to be able to go to places that give you that immediate, actionable insight into a topic that needs to be put right in your own portfolio life.
Yeah, and there are some resources out there, everybody. There really are. If you go looking, obviously the Portfolio Collective is a great place to go looking, and just Google that and you'll find it easily, everybody. And there's a freemium level membership, so you can get plugged in there. But as Zed and I said earlier, we quickly deduced that yes, that's going to be a great introduction, but most portfolio professionals need something deeper, more ongoing, more continuous than that. And then there's some various books around, and I think I shared with you, Zed, I'm listening to one right now on Audible, and it's called, and please, listeners, if you fancy listening to it, go get it. It's a great little book, The Portfolio Life, How to Future-Proof Your Career, Avoid Burnout, and Build a Life Bigger Than Your Business Card, by Christina Wallace, who's actually on faculty, at least as an adjunct, I believe. Excuse me, Christina, if I'm mangling your resume here. On faculty at Harvard Business School, I think. I think she's a Harvard MBA herself. The Portfolio Life. And it's a great book. I'm about halfway through it. No doubt, as we get into the second half of that book, it gets deeper into some practical, pragmatic things you can do and tools and frameworks and thinking. But the reality is, everybody, and we've seen this in the forum that we have run for 2 years, most of those members have read most of the books. They've been through most of the basic training of how to, figure out their positioning and their offerings and their solutions and their passions and their purpose and all of that. They've done the basics, which most books tend to cover at sort of 30,000 feet. And to some degree, they're not as successful, certainly, as they want to be. And they're wondering why. And of course, what we do is we double click, we get down into the weeds, and we start to show them the blind spots of, this isn't really clear, that isn't really working, this isn't jiving with everything else. No wonder you're sort of spinning your wheels here. And so that's where our energy is coming from to write this A to Z road atlas of portfolio career success, is to really give people a play-by-play, turn-by-turn, roadmap to help them get from where they are to where they want to be with their portfolio career and their success as a portfolio professional. What kinds of things do you think we'll be delving into, Zed, in all of that?
Oh God, we need another podcast for that.
That's the plan. That's what we're going to do here.
I won't fudge it. But I should say that one of the, I think, really interesting things Mike and I have identified, and it's not new, but maybe it's new in the virtual world, in the digital world, in the portfolio world. I think the element of a collegiate exploration of issues with a group that you are bonded with, not just leveraging the collective intelligence of the group, but by bringing some humanity into what can be an extraordinarily lonely existence. And whilst it might be virtual, the way we are addressing the problem for portfolio professionals, that is only because we want to be where they need us to be. So we can't be in every country in the world, so we provide it digitally. And I think that bringing together of humans, albeit over a screen, sharing and exploring a like issue, a like challenge, a like problem is a very, very powerful thing. And Mike, we've seen a lot of that in recent months and years. In terms of what I think will bring the best benefit to portfolio professionals outside of the granular, this is my issue and this is what I need to do, I would turn to, and I think you know what I'm going to say, Mike, the fact that I had dismissed for so long what I consider to be woo-woo subjects, like your passionate purpose, for instance, and really understanding your why. I'm actually so passionate about it. I'm currently working on an AI model that will take some of the drudgery out of that and get people to the center of their why as quickly as possible, because the alignment of that to your business hypothesis is going to become crucial, because it is too hard to be doing the stuff that we do if it doesn't align with your current or intended life. And I think there's a great underestimation of how you should align your why, align your sense of purpose with what you're doing, and not see it as something that's optional, but seeing it as something that is essential.
Yeah, beautiful. Love that. And so, everybody. So Zed and I have energy to make a contribution to the ecosystem of support that needs to emerge around this whole trend, this whole rising tide of portfolio careers. And again, earlier we said, we'll just use that label, and there's a whole bunch of different things you can put in that bucket, because everybody will have a portfolio career at some point, or at least that's the only safe assumption. And frankly, it is a very underserved domain. There's a void that needs to be filled. And so we're going to contribute to the ecosystem at various levels, and people get to sort of choose what level they want to participate at and maybe progress from one to the other. Ultimately, we, as you just heard, we're gonna get our book written this year. As Zed just mentioned, the spin out of that can be an AI-enabled platform that people can use for self-coaching and self-assessment and mapping out, their action plan and their pathway. We mentioned the Portfolio Peer Forum, those people that want to get involved in that. But this podcast is here to sort of cast a wider net. And for those people that just want to be on the fringe, listening in and just getting tuned in and spooled up around all of this, that's what this podcast is here to do. And we look forward to having you all along for the ride, everybody. So we're going to be doing this, by and large, every month, every 6 weeks. There'll be a Portfolio Conversations episode of the Peering podcast, and we'll gradually accumulate that. We'll have some guests, we'll have some thought leaders, we'll have some authors, we'll have some speakers, we'll have anybody we can find that we feel can really shine a light onto this domain. And I'm really excited, Zed. I'm really excited about working on this book together. We've got started, everybody. We're going to use an AI-enabled book writing platform, and we're getting started right now, and it's going to happen this year. So we're really excited about it. What are your thoughts about the book, Zed?
Yeah, I'm loving that. I'm a bit of trepidation, but not too much. I've got over the trepidation. I'm very interested in how AI is now such an enabling tool, and I would advise anybody who hasn't got into AI to really stop just using it as an advanced version of Google and look at how it might help you in the work and the preparations that you need to do. Mike, I just want to finish off by saying one further thing about this difference between your portfolio career and your previous career, if you like.
Yeah.
Maybe it's worth actually attaching the word life onto portfolio rather than career.
Yeah.
Because it's life, right?
Yeah.
And whilst we all may have had a career prior, I think a portfolio career is very much part of your portfolio life. And I'd like to think that some episode down the road, Mike, we might even branch out a little bit and talk about what does that mean in terms of family, community, health, money, etc. Because they are all very, very relevant things and keep you grounded in terms of what you're doing.
No, it's very well said. As I said, everybody, I've been in the field of peer forums, peer groups, peer advisory boards for more than 2 decades now, and Zed has now joined me in that field, as we talked about, over the last few years, and therefore have always been working with members and coaching members, of startups and small to medium-sized mid-market companies and corporations. And, most of those are owner managed. Some of them are venture capital or private equity backed. Some of them are family businesses. But in some way, shape or form, they're all that sort of classic, big, small company, as I like to call it. They're too small to be big and too big to be small. They're kind of in the messy middle. And a CEO and or C-suite executive of a business like that, business and life becomes inseparable. It's a tangled web of all of it. Professional development and personal growth becomes inseparable. It's a tangled web of business, professional, personal life. It's everything. And in particular, if and when somebody goes portfolio times 10, because now business, professional, personal life are inseparable. They are just one tangled web of everything. There are some fabulous life possibilities that emerge as a portfolio professional. Not least of all things as mundane as tax efficiency and things like that. But schedule efficiency and the opportunity to combine business and life travel, to be nomadic if that's what you choose to do. But it gives you all kinds of possibilities that didn't exist before, or certainly were more challenging. And I suspect that is why that book that I just referenced from Christina Wallace, she chose to call The Portfolio Life.
Correct.
Not just portfolio career. So very, very, very great point, Zed. So we're excited, everybody. We're excited to be launching this new stream of the podcast, Portfolio Conversations. We're excited to be writing a book and delving into AI. We're excited to continue our journey with our Portfolio Peer Forum. We're excited about the trends that we see with the Portfolio Collective that just continues to grow rapidly. It's going to be an exciting year, Zed. Did you have other things that you wanted to share, Zed, before we begin to land the plane here?
I think we land the plane, Mike. I think the scene is set, or the stage is set now for us to drill down into some of the things that you and I both know are really, really important. I would finish off by a soundbite and say, look, we don't want you to get too disturbed by anything that we've said. It is all achievable. Your version of success is achievable. But one word of caution, and one thing that I see a lot of, don't redesign your corporate life into your portfolio life, which is so easy to do because that memory muscle kicks in and you behave the same as you did before. You're going to have to change.
Yeah, and number one, I'll double down on that. And number two, everybody, when you get it right, not that Zed and I are perfect by any means, we're not. And by the way, no portfolio career will be a straight line journey. We've had plenty of our ups and downs. It's a bit of a roller coaster ride. But when you get more right than you get wrong, and you keep the snowball effect rolling, right? So you're compounding the snowball effect faster than the snowball is melting. Then you can arrive in a great place where, frankly, and I'll let you speak for yourself, my portfolio career has been the most fulfilling part of my career and my life to date, and I only expect that to continue to get better and better and better. I don't know about you, Zed. I'll never retire. I mean, hopefully with a bit of luck, staying healthy, of course. Why would I ever want to retire from my passionate purpose? That doesn't end well if I'm not careful. Now, I might ease off, I might scale back, I might dial back a little bit, but why would I ever want to retire from being in the lives of the people that I work with and have them in mind? So, what about you, Zed? Any imminent retirement plans, Zed?
Like you, look, retirement's nice, but I think it's different for everybody. And I have no intention of retiring. I've got too much energy. I've got too much in my tank in terms of my passion or purpose that I want to do. I think the whole element of thinking about yourself in the context of your portfolio life, giving yourself the freedoms that you would never have had you stayed put in your corporate career, I think is a blessing. The fact that you have now got control, albeit with some of the tips and tricks that we're going to be talking about, you've got control over your income, your businesses, your activities, your life. I think and if I can close on a comment that someone made when I was researching our Portfolio Peer Forums before we started, I asked this gentleman, who's a very well-known person in the UK, so I shall not name him. He was a member of another peer-to-peer forum organization. I said, do you think that made you the business person that you are now because he's hugely successful? And he turned around to me and he went, no. And I thought, oh, that's odd. It's counterintuitive, because I was certain he was going to say, of course it did. I was there 12 years. And he turned around to me after a sort of a breath of air and went, you know what, though? Wait a minute, he said. He goes, I don't think it made me better at business, but I think what it did is it made me a better person, and that made me better at business. Yeah. And I thought that was a great anecdote. Yeah. And one I'd like to finish off on.
Yeah. Awesome, everybody. So there we have it. Another episode of the Peering Podcast, and the first and launch episode of Portfolio Conversations as a stream inside of the Peering Podcast. Come on back, everybody, and join us again. We're going to delve into the success factors for a portfolio career as a portfolio professional. Zed and I are going to be co-hosting that stream of episodes. We're going to have a lot of fun as we go along. Thanks for being here, Zed. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's it for this episode of the Peering Podcast. where we believe the best way to see the future is to peer into it together. If today sparked something for you, share it with your peers. And keep the conversation going at peeringpodcast.com, because leadership gets clearer and the future gets brighter when we peer together. Thanks for listening. And until next time, keep peering in.